Well, we thought the Chargers had a really good defense, but today Baker Mayfield really exposed them. They won 40-17, and they just really dominated the Chargers all day today. It was like they were bullies in a locker room. It was terrible for the Chargers, that is. They're 8-6 now. They do lead the NFC South, which I think I predicted earlier in the year. I think I said Tampa Bay would probably win this division.
No. You were a NFC South, and you were a Falcons believer.
No, I'm pretty sure I said Tampa Bay.
I've got it on file. Run the tape.
So it's a scary stretch. Enough for me to say under here because I think 7 wins is maybe their max. I've deleted it already. It's a deep fake, actually. It wasn't me that week. But no, Tampa Bay is one of those teams where you had mentioned teams getting hot at the end of the year. This is one of those teams that I feel like with Mike Evans back and Bucky Irving getting a little bit healthier.
It was good.
I think the hip issue is a little bit better this week. At least it seemed at this today. Do you think the Bucs can win a playoff game? And I think I don't want to say a silly question because obviously any NFL team on any given Sunday could probably win a playoff game.
But some teams are long shots. Yeah,
they are. Yeah, but me personally, I don't think this is in question too much. I believe that the Bucs have a sure shot at winning a playoff game.
So I don't know if I'd pick them to, but I think they can. I think a few things have to go right for them. The Bucs are such an interesting team, similar to what I said about Philadelphia. When I said Philadelphia can beat you anyway, they show up and say, "What kind of game do you want to play?" Okay, we'll beat you that way. The Bucs are the opposite. They're going to show up and they're going to say, "We have to win one way. We have to stop the run. We have to get pressure on the quarterback, and Baker Mayfield has to be hot." If those three things don't happen, they won't win, and they will look awful. That's why they're up and down a lot.
So let me bring you this question, and we'll talk about this team next. Let's talk about if the playoffs ended today, Tampa Bay would play Green Bay. Okay? We saw Green Bay, what can happen when their script goes right, which is Josh Jacobs has to have a good game.
Yeah.
If it has to rely on Jordan Love, we have an issue.
I disagree with that. I think Jordan Love's playing really well.
It's harder for them to win if it has to rely completely on Jordan Love.
I would phrase it different. I would say the Packers are scarier when Josh Jacobs is having a big game.
Yes.
I wouldn't knock Love, but yes, I agree.
As far as big game goes, today was pretty much one of those big days.
He's been having a lot of them.
Told you in the offseason that this was going to be a huge addition to this team, and it's played out that way. So my question is, Tampa Bay and Green Bay would play if the playoffs were today. You said Tampa Bay has to have a script go one way.
Yes.
I think Green Bay has to have, they're both Bays, right? This would be the Dock of the Bay game, okay? Green Bay, I think, has to have a script to go the right way. I think for it to run the way they want it to, they have to be able to run the ball. I think Josh Jacobs has to be very successful.
So that's really interesting. That's so interesting because I agree with you. But on the other side, for Tampa to do well, they have to be able to stop the run, which, remember, that was an issue last year. This year, they've done a good job at stopping the run. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like one of the better teams. Looks like they're top 12, 15 in rush yards a game. So they do a pretty good job at that. That would be a great matchup to watch because you're right. Green Bay would need to get Jacobs going. And for Tampa to have any success, they would have to neutralize him to an extent. So you'd probably be able to tell pretty early on who gets the advantage in that matchup.
The question was, could the Bucs win a playoff game? The playoffs are today. Would they win this football game?
They would not win that football game.
Would you say it's because of Green Bay's defense?
No, I would say it's kind of an amalgamation of all the things I said. So let me go broader and not just say it's Tampa Bay and Green Bay. Let me just focus in on Tampa Bay. The answer is yes, they can win a playoff game. I wouldn't pick them against the Packers, but I wouldn't be shocked if they beat the Packers. I think it would be like a 2-point spread. It'd be basically a pick 'em. Like it would be a close game, especially if Tampa was at home. Here's the thing. Tampa Bay's defense gives up explosive plays down the field. Like I think they have one of the worst pass defenses in the league. It feels like it. Yeah, bottom 5 pass defense. They give up explosive plays all over the place, but some games they're able to shut that down. Because of Todd Bowles and the type of defense he runs, not to get like too in the weeds here, they run a lot of blitzes and a lot of exotic coverages. They like to get after the quarterback, and they get torched from time to time. And that's why I said it comes down to pressures. They do a good job stopping the run most of the time. If they can stop the run and get home with their pressures, force incompletions, get sacks, force throwaways, whatever, then I like them. And I think they can beat any team they face if they do that. But as we've seen this season, they're inconsistent in their ability to do that. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. So if those pressures get home and hit Jordan Love or whatever quarterback they're playing, and on the other side, simultaneously, Baker Mayfield's hot. Because when he's hot, he's great. But sometimes he has those games where he throws 3 picks and he just doesn't look the same. He's had a few this year. That's kind of been Tampa Bay. They've been up and down. You have to have both of those things happen. They both have to go right. They have to get home with their pressures, keep stopping the run, and Baker has to be on fire. If those things go together, which like they did against the Chargers, like they have multiple times this season, then they can win a playoff game. If they don't, they won't. And it's just, you just don't know which Tampa Bay you're going to get because it is so volatile week to week. I will say though, with that said, they've won 4 straight games. They do seem to be getting hot at the right time. And their final 3 games, Ryan, Cowboys, Panthers, and Saints. Theoretically, they could go into the playoffs on a 7-game win streak.
I'm just looking at, since Green Bay's bye week in week 10, I brought this up earlier in the show. They've only allowed one team, which is the Lions, to go over 20 points. They held the Seahawks today to 13, the Dolphins to 17, the 49ers to 10, and the Bears to 19. So I think this Green Bay defense is legit. And after they dismantled Seattle today, which I know Geno got hurt, what was it? Third quarter?
Yeah.
If he would have played through the whole game, it would have wound up the same way, I think. This isn't a knock against Geno or anything. I'm just saying the defense of Green Bay is, I believe, that good. And I think they're getting better as the weeks go on. So I think that's what would make me pick Green Bay right now. If Green Bay and Tampa Bay played, I think Green Bay wins because of the defense. I think they're able to shut down some of these big plays that Tampa Bay has to have for them to be able to win.
100% right. I would agree with that completely. If you look at the offensive yards a game, offensive production yards a game, top 5 teams, Ravens, Lions, Bucks, Packers, and then Commanders. Bucks are 3, Packers are 4. So they're dead even in offensive production. You go to the opposite side, defensive production. As you said, Packers are top 5, Bucks are bottom 5. That's a big difference. Now, if those pressures get home and you force a turnover, which Jordan Love is prone to do, things can go another way. I'm with you. I would pick the Packers in that hypothetical matchup. Let me say this last point, we'll move on. Even though the question was, could the Bucks win a playoff game? We said against the Packers, we wouldn't pick them, but I think they could win a playoff game because they could beat the Packers. And if they get a draw like the Commanders, they could beat the Commanders. If they get a draw like the Vikings, they could beat them. They went into Detroit and beat Detroit this year. So that's the thing. Like on any given Sunday, they could pull it off. They just, I wouldn't favor them to necessarily.
One thing I've learned is to never doubt Baker Mayfield because that dude can play some ball. He is, when he's on fire, you can't put him out. Like he's dialed in. He can escape the pocket. He can get the yards with his legs. He can throw some dimes.
Awesome.
He can thread the needle. And honestly, this version of Baker Mayfield, we've had a lot of versions of Baker if you watched him through Oklahoma days, right? Yeah. We've had a lot of versions of Baker. We've had him childish. We've had him, being the front man of the Browns, and that's really all he was good for there because they didn't know how to utilize him. And now you have him at the Bucs. So he comes into an organization that just won a Super Bowl with the greatest quarterback of our generation, Tom Brady, and you have to pick up the pieces where they fell. He's done a pretty good job. And as a Browns fan, you have to be thinking like, wow, did we miss this talent? Now, I think it's just the coaching he's had around him. The talent was always there. Somebody just had to bring it out of him. And just the way he's playing, the maturity, and this version of Baker Mayfield is my favorite of all time. Just the way he plays on the field, the way his players around him respect him, and the amount of fun that he has on the field.
Yes.
He's just such a fun dude, man.
That's why the Tampa Bay fit feels great. Doesn't it feel like it's just where he belongs? He belongs in Florida, in that culture,
the fans
with
love
those
him.
guys. Like it feels like he is a Tampa quarterback. He never really quite fit in Cleveland. Now, by the way, let's just not pretend his Cleveland day was a disaster.
Fit in Cleveland?
No one. Kevin Stefanski's the only one, and massage parlors. There's a lot of them up there. Baker Mayfield won a playoff game in Cleveland. He beat the Steelers. Like he was successful. It's not his fault they made a dumbass decision. I agree, though. I love him. If you take away those top echelon of quarterbacks like Burrow, Jackson, Allen, the top tier guys, right below them, I mean, Baker's like at the top of those guys. He's right in that conversation.
Yeah. I said earlier, I texted you earlier, he's top 5 quarterback. You're like, no, he's not. And I'm like, well, in fantasy, that's what I was meaning because I was looking at the fantasy points as I was texting you.
It's funny because I have him in Dynasty, but I haven't started him a single game because I also have Josh Allen.
Well, everybody's not as lucky as you, I guess. But anyway, when you look at Baker, after you get past those, like you said, the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks right now, he's trying to fight his way to that rock formation. He is trying to be up there, and he's doing a pretty good job. Unfortunately, I just don't think he'll ever surpass somebody like Lamar Jackson or anything like that. But he doesn't need to. He could take the Bucs to a Super Bowl. He really could. I believe he could.
100% he could. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs last year. They did and made a run. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs this year. They're going to, and they're going to make a run. It's impressive. You have to like him at this point in his career. I agree. It's the best Baker Mayfield we've seen. They can win a playoff game. Maybe not against the Packers, but depends on the matchup.